Just about. We got, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep. Okay. Good evening, everyone. It's 7 p.m. I'd like to call the August 10th City Council meeting in order. Because of COVID-19 restrictions, our meeting tonight will be held via Zoom. Public comments were accepted in advance by mail and email. These comments will be read into the public record shortly. If you'd like to submit a public comment for our next meeting, please visit www.merriam.org and follow their directions listed there. As a reminder to the council, please be conscientious while there's time to speak. Speak slowly and clearly. State your name prior to speaking. If you need to confirm something that may have been difficult to hear, I will ask for clarification, or if I hear of anything. The format for the council consideration on items tonight will be staff presentation, then I will open time for council questions. Please hold questions till the end of the staff presentations. Then I will open a time for council questions. Raise your hand. You can physically raise your hand so that I can see it on the video, or Meredith can see it if it's on another page that I can't see. She'll help me out. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Sissom?
Here.
Councilmember DeBold? Councilmember Hans?
Here.
Councilmember Caldwell?
Here.
Councilmember Knapp?
Here.
Councilmember Neal? Councilmember Pape?
Here.
Councilmember Silvers?
Here.
Member Yodrich?
Here.
Very good. We'll go to public comments. Last week, I inadvertently omitted one of the comments that we had, and I apologize for that, but we're going to include it this week. So Julie, would you please read any public comments that were submitted into advance into the record, including the one that we did not get to last week?
Okay. First public comment is from Al Frisbee, 10121 West 59th Terrace. His comment is, I am reading from the Friday Kansas City Star, quote, on Thursday, Missouri saw a record number of new cases for the third day in a row, and the Kansas City metro area set a record for a second straight day, adding 605 new cases of COVID-19 virus. The metro currently has a 7-day rolling average of 430 new cases per day. On June 4th, that average was 102 new cases per day. At least 300 people have died from the virus in the Kansas City area, end quote. I am sending this information to the council because the virus is spiking in the Kansas City metro area. If we allow people to take off their masks when they are on a treadmill and then go to another exercising apparatus, we are allowing aerosols containing the virus to travel a distance of more than 6 feet and hang in the air for a number of hours. Some research suggests 3 to 11 hours. This will be an unhealthy environment, and I am predicting we will have an outbreak here in Merriam. Please think about this situation and save lives by shutting down certain areas of the community center that don't require the wearing of masks until a vaccine or 4 are discovered and easily available. I understand there will be up to 12 feet or so distancing between equipment, but the aerosols will surely overcome that distance. As a biologist, I know a little bit about pandemics, including that my knowledge in AP biology classes over 22 years. I don't understand exercising or going anywhere in the community center without a mask and physical distancing. And I hope that the entire council has read the scientific journal page I sent you about viral aerosols a couple of weeks ago. Please use this information to make informed decisions. Area health officials from the Core Four, including Jackson County, Johnson County, Kansas, Kansas City, Missouri, and Wyandotte County, said Friday that the COVID-19 spread is increasing at an alarming rate in the Kansas City metro area. And they urge residents in a letter to take seriously the safety precautions in order to help stop the spread of the disease. We are seeing a dramatic increase in the number of new cases across the entire metropolitan area, and our frontline workers are having difficulty keeping up with the vast and increasing numbers of COVID-19 cases. The letter continues. It will also be important to limit interactions in settings like bars, restaurants, and other places where people will have to take off their masks, as in our community center. Thank you, Al.
Very good. Next one, please.
Another one, yes. This is from Marvy Shoemake at 6014 Hadley Street. It says, I have approached my two council people about why Merriam allows so many trash companies in Merriam. I have 4 different trash companies that come down my street, and that means there's a possibility of them picking up trash, recycle, and yard waste in both directions. I could have 60 trucks a week going up and down my street, as well as the cost is getting out of hand. It seems like Merriam could negotiate a price for all the city, and we would all benefit for it, as well as our street would not get the beating they are. I would not even mind if it was part of my taxes.
Very good. Next one, please.
The next one is from Matt Garrett. He doesn't provide an address, but he's a Lenexa resident. Says, I'm a Lenexa resident and use Merriam to reach downtown Kansas City weekly on my bicycle, along with hundreds of other cyclists. KCK and KC Mo have done a great job connecting bike lanes and Shiros to the Merriam city line. It would be amazing to see Merriam Drive connected into this system of cycling infrastructure, similar also to what North Kansas City just did with Armour Road. Safer streets bring commerce and invite visitors to spend more time in Merriam.
Okay. And the next one, please.
The next one is from Tina Cheatham. She does not provide her address. And it says, are you trying to recover all the money put out on the great community center and new outdoor pond? It's not okay to increase city taxes because your staff was incompetent to budget this project. Why the increase? We're in a pandemic with a ton of people out of work. I strongly disagree with this. The direction Merriam is going is not settling well with residents. And then I have one last comment. This
Go
is
ahead.
Billy Crone,
Mhm.
6633 Wed Street. It says, on the first page of the 2021 draft budget memo before you today, you will see property tax collections from Merriam residents to the Merriam government are planned to increase by 5.7%. Not only do I see this as an increase in property tax, it comes at a time when we need it the least. We have all lost income and incurred expenses to flatten the curve. We're not done yet. And many of our neighbors continue to risk their lives for every dollar they do earn. Now is not the time for a property tax increase. And before someone brings up that the city's mill rate not changing, I will point out that the value of each mill has gone up substantially this year. So we should need fewer of them to accomplish the same level of service. I think that in our hearts, we all understand very few people care what mill number their city chooses to budget for or how much a mill is worth. We care about just how much money is going to go missing each year for permission to keep the homes we've already paid for. And that amount, my friends, will go up 5.7% for every one of us. if you do not direct staff to alter the budget from the draft before you tonight. Now, you know I hate to complain without providing solutions. So I read through all of the projects in the agenda. As well, I did some math. City Hall exterior improvements are basically aesthetic. They were originally contemplated, in fact, as one of our art projects. I'm not buying artwork for my home this year or next. This is an extra frill that we can safely strip from the budget next year. Out of respect for those residents whose finances have suffered enormously. Cutting this project will reduce our mill levy by 1.46 in 2021. Likewise, despite my enthusiasm last year to be on the committee planning it, I recognize in this post-COVID world that building new park features on the 5701 property is not an urgent need, and additional spending to build an amphitheater need not occur for a couple of years, if at all. Cutting this project will reduce our mill by 1.0 in 2021 and about 1.5 to 2 mills in 2022. Regarding the 2021 Streamway Trail Expansion Project, as much as I love our trail system, the 51st Street section of that project could be canceled. There is already a sidewalk, in fact, where the proposed trail would go. If we cut this project in half, we would save 0.64 mills in the 2021 budget. There is also a project to build curb gutters on West Frontage Road between 67th and 75th Street. That road has no homes on it, and it's over a mile long. Buildings along the street are typically hundreds of feet from it, and nobody is playing in the grass up there. Think about the additional floodwater will be created every time it rains by adding gutters to the entirety of that street, as opposed to letting that runoff to be absorbed naturally by the grass and soil directly adjacent to the street as it is today. Skipping the gutter project on West Frontage will reduce flood liability in downtown Merriam and reduce the mill levy by 0.49 mills in 2021 and a whopping 5.95 mills in 2022. There are a couple of expensive street projects slated for next year that utilize matching from funds from the county. And though they could probably be deferred by 1 year, I would not want to do that because we would lose those matching county funds, and now is not the time to waste money either. Any one of you has the power. Direct staff here today to cancel or delay projects currently slated for our 2021 budget. Just adding up the ones I've listed today with mill numbers adds up to 3.9 mills in 2021 and 7.95 mills in 2022. But as I said earlier, I don't think mill numbers alone matter to people. They don't to me. The 3.9 mil reduction I prepared today will decrease the tax burden of the average Merriam household by $87.50. Some might dismiss that number as insignificant, but when my neighbors go out and risk their health to earn every one of those dollars, it's significant to me. And that saving is for each of our 4,900 households. 4,900 Merriam families. That's about 170 disposable masks for each family, and saving people money by moving projects out of the 2021 budget reduces expenses by $736,000. This is a great opportunity to make a real difference in people's lives. I'm not living lavishly these days. I've asked my neighbor, and no one who responded wanted to see an increase in property tax. Only one was okay with leaving the mill where it was. All of us have trimmed our personal budgets this year due to COVID-19. Please consider saving Merriam families some money by making these cuts to next year's Merriam City budget. Thank you. And that was our last public comment.
Okay, thank you very much. Some of the comments made may be answered in the meeting a little later as we get into some budget comments. Mr. Engel probably has been taking note of some of them may care to respond or not, or we may all bring up questions at that time. But anyway, let's keep the agenda rolling. In the next section of our agenda is consent agenda, and all items listed under the heading are considered to be routine by the City Council and may be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless, of course, the council member requests, in which case they'll be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. We have 3 items on the consent agenda this evening. Does any member of the council wish to remove one or more of these items for separate consideration? If so, raise your hand. Chris Hands?
This is Chris Hands, and I would like to remove item number 2, please.
Item number 2, okay? So we have item number 2 off. That leaves 1 and 3. Anybody want to remove either one of those? Move my thing around here a little bit. Okay. I didn't see any hands, so I will entertain a motion for items 1 and 3. Bob Tate.
Yeah, this is Bob. Mayor, I'd move that the council approve consent agenda items 1 and 3.
Motion made for items 1 and 3. Do I have a second?
And I can second that. This is Chris.
Motion made and seconded. Madam Clerk?
Councilmember Hands.
Aye.
Councilmember Caldwell.
Aye.
Councilmember Knapp.
Aye.
Councilmember Pape.
Aye.
Councilmember Silvers.
Aye.
Councilmember Yodrich.
Aye.
Motion passes 6-0.
Very good. That leaves item number 2, which is consider approval of a bid award to Mayor Specialty Services for 55th Street storm drainage repairs. Somebody want to talk about this before we have the question? Or do you want to ask the question first? Chris? Hands?
I'll just take the question and
Okay.
see if I can
Okay.
answer it or give it to Jim.
It's a very easy question. It's just, have we had prior experience with this particular contractor?
No, this is the first time we've used this contractor. We had the engineering firm reach out and check references, and everything came back that they do good work and they stand by their product.
Okay, that's all I needed to know. I'm willing to make a motion if no one else has questions.
Anyone else have a question about this? Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
So Chris Hands again. I move that the council award the 55th Street storm drainage repairs to Mayor Specialty Services in the amount of $55,750.
And I need a second. Bob Pape,
I'll second, Mayor.
go right ahead. Madam Clerk, we have a motion and a second. Go ahead and read roll.
Councilmember Caldwell.
Aye.
Councilmember Knapp.
Aye.
Councilmember Pape.
Aye.
Councilmember Silvers.
Aye.
Councilmember Yodrich.
Aye.
Councilmember Hands.
Aye.
Motion passes 6-0.
Very good. Okay, we'll go to the mayor's report. We have one item under the mayor's report, and this is our quarterly awards for staff and tenure. I'm very proud to proclaim that this evening we're going to recognize Jason Reynolds with the Merriam Police Department. He has spent 20 years of his life in service of our citizens. And I could tell you from my 20 years experience with him, he's a very nice man, and he does an excellent job, and he's a professional, one of the many professional members. So they're all professionals, but he certainly stands among them for our police department. And I want to tell Jason, if you're listening or not, that we're proud to have you here and congratulate you on your 20 years of service. As you can imagine, yes, he'll get his award down the road. But anyway, very good. Let's move to finance and administration. I'm going to go ahead and go with the first item, which is the 2021 budget update. And Donna, would you please provide staff updates on this item?
Yes, I'm going to share my screen with you.
I may need to give you permission to do that. Hold on.
Okay.
There you go.
Just a kind of quick update on what changes have been made since we first started this process. We've adjusted, we adjusted 2020 sales tax revenue based on just last month's distribution, because in total it was 535,000 more than we were anticipating it being. So that was a positive move. And there were different, there were some miscellaneous revenue accounts that I just went through and I took a look at them again. And just to be conservative, I kind of reduced some of those. So that took 59,000 of it back.
Cool.
As far as expenditures, we removed the city council stipend that was proposed. We reduced 5701 Merriam Drive in the current year in 2020 by 500,000 because we had 650,000 in there, but since the bid for the demolition came in so low, we were able to take 500,000 of that out. As COVID hit, we began to shift when we were going to purchase some of the police cars and some of the equipment. And we, in fact, wound up shifting a police car back to next year. And we got the budget in there for it, but we didn't initially budget for the equipment for it. So we needed to add that in after myself and the chief and Ross had some conversations. And then I believe that there are going to be some changes made to the school crossing guard. I had, in talking with the chief, he had explained he would need 20,000 more this year. I understood that to mean next year also, but in fact, he's going to need 30,000 next year. So I did a 10,000 increase on that. The long and short of it is fund balance at the end, when you get to the end of 2021, is going to be up about $1 million over what we had previously shared with you, which is really good news. And so this kind of shows our fund overview. And again, before we were showing you 50 million and now it's 51 million. Or I'm sorry, 20,591,000 is our ending fund balance. So we are up $1 million. Tomorrow, the notice for the public hearing on the budget workshop will be posted. On the 24th, we will have the public hearing and the adopt the resolution to adopt the budget. And the following day, we will have to turn the certification in to the county clerk. One thing about COVID that maybe makes this year a little more challenging is that the submittal to the county clerk's office has a page that the city council will sign off on, and we don't have to have a majority of you sign it, but we would like to have as many as possible. Normally, I think that's just passed around after the budget hearing and after you've adopted it after that meeting. But we're going to need to actually try to sign it in a different way. And what we're proposing is I'll get here at 7:30 the morning of the 25th, so that if you're on your way into work or whatever, maybe that will give you an opportunity to stop and sign it. So from then until 10 o'clock, if some of you are just going to be at home and you need us to bring it by to be signed, we can send somebody by between 10 and noon. But please let us know if you want us to send somebody by to sign it. And we don't need to know now. We'll ask you again in 2 weeks, that Monday night. So just wanted to give you a heads up, though, that that's kind of headed. And that was really all I had for tonight.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I have a quick question. This is Whitney Yodrich.
Yes.
Donna, can you go back to the revenue adjustment slide? I think it was one of the first ones you had. I just wanted to make sure that I understood. You, for the adjust sales tax, you decreased it by 530? Increased
No,
it.
I increased
Okay.
it because when looking in 2020, we had forecasted that we would only collect 20% of last year's in July. When we got that July disbursement, it was actually 500,000 more than what we had forecast. So I went ahead and put that into the projection for ending fund balance this year.
That sounds good. My brain visually had reversed the parentheses, so I thought I wanted to go back. All right, that's all. Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah, this is Chris. Yeah, in summary, within about 2 weeks, we added $1 million to fund balance because within about 2 weeks, we got our July sales tax figures, which were for May. And as Donna said, we had projected them more conservatively than they were. So we had $540,000 more than we thought we were going to have. And then a few weeks later, council approved the 5701 demo. And that only spent $100 out of a $650,000 budget. So we were able to put another $500,000 back into the fund balance. So within about 2 weeks, we ended up with $1 million more in fund balance, which is good news. That's great. That's we will likely need that to buffer any lingering effects that COVID have. So that's good news. I would point out before we move on, it does say in your budget book, there is a typo in the budget book about the council stipend. So it does list that the council stipend is still in there under, I think, the admin page. That is just a typo on our fault. Apologize for that, but we did remove the stipend from the actual budget. And we will make sure that the final budget reflects that accurately.
If you can take down the slides and get back to our Hollywood Square format here, I can maybe move our conversation a little further on the budget. And I'm only doing this because I'm sure there's some people, some council members that might have questions. So we've received a list of some things that we might reconsider. It's my understanding that we've already reconsidered and removed some of those. Is that correct, Mr. Engel?
I don't know exactly what was in Mr. Crone's list, so we have modified the budget, yes. Let me
go through them. You can just let me know. First one is the City Hall expansion project, exterior art project changes.
That was pushed from 20 to 21, but it is still in the 21 budget.
Okay. The amphitheater, there's no plans to put an amphitheater in there. So.
No, what is in the budget for 21 and 22 is for planning purposes and potential implementation in 22. But for the 21 budget, which is what we're talking about tonight, there's just money in there to help with the planning process.
I always ask about the City Hall art project. I know we had discussion about doing something with it. I don't think the discussion was to completely eliminate it, but there was to push it to another year.
It will be on the top of the list of things that would, if COVID
Right.
lingers, that it would not, we would do the same exact thing that we did with it this year is the approach that we're taking.
Yeah, now I remember that's what we said. It wasn't
Unless
elimination.
unless my memory or our memory is wrong.
No.
It's just that's going to remain at the top of the list of, Mr. Crone has picked the projects, a few of those projects that are at number 1 and number 2 on our list. We won't do trail expansions if we can't. You know, those are not things that are going to be high priorities until we're clearly out of the woods next year.
Okay. Do you have any comments you want to put out there for the request to reduce our mill to absorb the increase that was seen by valuations being higher? And we already talked about it once, maybe to remind everybody kind of where we're at, because I know some of the council had questions about that.
I could do that. I would probably just put it in the context of the last 10 years. I don't know, Meredith, can I share my screen? Well, Donna was working on something. I actually pulled something up.
You should have permission to now.
Okay, let's see here. Share content.
Meredith has a lot of power during these meetings.
No, it's terrifying.
Can everybody see this?
Yes.
Yes.
So this is from our CAFR, which is our comprehensive annual financial report we get done at the end of every year. It's published on our website. So this is a third-party auditor that comes in and audits our books each and every single year. What you're going to see there is the last 10 years of mill, the mill rate. On the left is the city of Merriam. So the mill rate's made up of a basic rate and the debt service. Most important number is that total direct. So that is the mill rate for the last 10 years. The small variation and fluctuations that occur each one of those years are not because council has voted to increase the mill rate, because council has not actually voted to increase the mill rate since, I believe, 2008 for the 2009 budget. So for about 12 years, the mill rate has been voted to stay the same. But those variations come in there primarily because of people that protest their property valuations. And so it creates these small variations. So we are requesting that the council vote on a mill rate next week, in 2 weeks of 27.765, which would potentially be a decrease, but it may change depending on how many people protest their valuations. But what you can see there, as you go across, the overlapping rates are the rest. So when you get your property tax bill, it's not just the city. City's just one small piece of it. You've got the state, you've got Johnson County, the junior college, Board of Education. I would argue that probably this CAFR is probably the only place that you can find in the public where you can find out that there's a Merriam Drainage Board, or that there's actually a mill rate that we pay the Merriam, that we as residents pay the Merriam Drainage District. And then you've got the total overlapping. But in that far right column, I'll draw your attention to the bottom right, which is in 2019, because that was the last year that we actually have good numbers for. The total mill rate for any Merriam property owner was 118.786. And if you look back 10 years ago to the top right-hand corner, it was 118.782. So the total taxable bill that someone's going to get on property in Merriam, the mill rate is almost exactly the same. And we are requesting actually a small decrease from 19 to 20. So when you have a mill rate, you just select the mill rate. We don't, it's similar to a sales tax rate. So the sales tax rate gets set, the city sales tax rate is 1.5. The total is about 9.5 in the community. The cost of a Big Mac 10 years ago is not the cost of a Big Mac today, but we don't decrease the sales tax rate simply because the cost of the Big Mac cost has increased. The multiplier that there is the mill rate for each of the taxing entities is based on the property valuation. The fact that the county has increased property values, I would argue, is a good thing, but a byproduct of that is that you have a larger valued product being running through all those mill rates. But again, I think it's important to point out that in the top right corner, 118.782 was your total mill rate if you lived in Merriam in 2010. 2019, it was 118.786. So the mill rate really has not changed. The council has not voted in over 10 years to increase the mill rate. So I think that's something that's overlooked. I think it's probably something that I think it's something the council should be proud of. And I think it's something that the council's made a commitment, at least as long as I've been here, to every single year try to hold that mill rate steady. But that's in the CAFR, Comprehensive Annual Financial Report. It's located on our website. You can go back to, I think the furthest one back there is 2011, and that would have 10 years prior. So there's 20 years of mill rates available for any resident to check out on our website if they'd like to see that. That would be my response.
I have just a couple comments that maybe you can comment on if you wish. We're going to have a significant reduction in the amount of revenues thanks to COVID-19. It may not be as bad as some cities, but I know right now we're talking to maybe about a 30% decrease in revenues, something like that. Isn't that pretty accurate from what we said before?
That's pretty close to where we think we're going to end up. Yes, sir.
Right. So I guess we want to make sure that everybody understands that the city of Merriam's not just floating along as if nothing happened. We're going to have a 30% reduction in our revenues. So instead of 100% like we had last year, we're going to have 70% of what we had last year. Individuals, many of our citizens have suffered for different reasons, job-wise and expenses-wise. So is the city. We're no different. There's this desire for us to reduce our mill levy so that those residents can see a little bit of a break on their taxes. But we're suffered 30%. So I mean, we kind of understand how that works. I'm not sure this is the best time for us to consider doing that. We've had this discussion. The other thing too, and I don't know if we talked about this, but there's also a future implication to lowering our mill rate. It's not just for 1 year. It just doesn't go away and come back next year. It goes away at that rate and stays that we suffer from that lower rate going forward until we raise taxes. So this is a very important vote. If we decide we're going to reduce our mill by 2 or 3 mills, it's 2 or 3 mills this year, next year, the next 15 years, until we decide to raise taxes. When I became the mayor in 2009, I made a pledge that I would not vote to raise the property taxes. I don't believe we need to, and I don't want to put ourselves in a position where that might be one of the things that we have to do because we've lowered it. Mr. Silvers, did you have a question?
Yes, this is Jason Silvers. And is it correct that if we lower the mill rate and then need to increase it, that actually has to be a ballot issue?
I'm going to let Chris Engel explain that because it's kind of technical. I could give you an answer, but it might not be 100% accurate.
It would depend on what we were raising the taxes for and where. At the very least, it would require a public hearing and a vote of the council to increase taxes. At the very least.
But there is a cap on how much we can raise taxes by the state legislature. Now they don't cap themselves, but they put a cap on cities on how much you can raise a mill on certain things. And so, while we've never had to worry about that much because, again, the type of financial structure we have puts us in very good shape. But there's a lot of cities that has impacted. I think that's the only thing I wanted to say. Let me double check. I appreciate the comments from citizens. And again, I don't like paying taxes any more than anybody else, but I will tell you that, when you buy a new car, if you go up to Hendrick Chevrolet and buy a new car, you're going to pay personal property tax on that car. And it's going to be at a rate that will be its highest rate for the life of that car, because in the years that you own it, the value of that car goes down. And as the value of that car goes down, your property taxes also go down. Now, homes are a little different. They don't go down, they go up usually. And so the same applies. It's the value of your property. It has to be taxed based on its value. If it goes up, if the county appraiser decides that your house is increased by 10% in its value, that means you're the owner of a house that's 10%, of more worth 10% than it was the year before, and that's a good thing. But the bad thing is you're going to have to pay more taxes because your house is worth more money. We don't have any control over that. So I've had some people just recently tried to state that we've raised people's taxes. That's certainly not the case. We have not. Anybody else have any questions before we get off of the budget update? Chris Hands?
I just wanted to restate that when it says that the property tax collections are going to go up, that includes residential as well as commercial. And that does not mean that my house did not increase by 5.7%, but overall, we've brought in new buildings. There's a lot of different things in that number. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anyone else? I'm screening back and forth. I don't see any hands. Okay. Well, anyway, thank you very much, Donna, for that report. Again, we've got 2 weeks before we have the hearing and the vote. So any questions, city staff's willing to answer or meet with you if you want to come in and go over them to the degree what you can. We might have to sit in another room somewhere, but you can always call and ask questions. So let's go ahead and move to the community center update. Meredith, you want to give us a staff update on this item?
Yes, good evening. And I'll share my screen with you. All right, you can see my presentation, okay?
Yep.
Okay. All right, so these are getting shorter and shorter the further we get in the project, and this will probably actually be one of the last one of these that I give to you as we begin to enter the final few months of this project. So as always, this will be posted on the website tomorrow for anyone who's interested in viewing those archives. As always, I begin with a budget update, and we continue to remain on budget for this project. We're actually working right now to get kind of all of the financial records in order so we can close out this project. There's still some additional costs we have coming in. We have about 2 more months of work from the financial side. But we look like we're going to be in a really good place with the budget, which is great news. The project schedule. So right now the building is open, as you all know, and we are just working on getting the indoor pool completed. The work's going really well. I went over and took a look at it today. So we look like we're still on schedule for that to happen later this month or like by Labor Day for early September. This was a slide that I showed you at my last update in July. Obviously, we've crossed off some pretty big milestones. We still have that indoor pool that's waiting to be completed. Also in September, our plan is to begin the indoor aquatic classes and do lap swim by reservation. And this is something that we continue to monitor closely based on the current COVID situation. And we are talking to our neighbors who also have indoor pools to make sure that we're all in alignment with how those pools are operating and that we're aware of what's working for them and what we can do to make that a safe experience for everyone who chooses to come. Assuming that COVID continues to go well, or I guess begins to go well. Our goal is to have open swim beginning in October. We have a number of neighboring communities with pools who are operating that right now and have found some ways to allow that to happen and still preserve some of the social distancing and other safety requirements that are being recommended by KRPA. And then as we discussed last time, October 4th will be the last day to purchase your charter membership. So those are still for sale, but beginning October 5th, we will go to full price monthly and annual membership. So people have about 2 months approximately to lock in a membership at that lower rate. If you've been to the site, you can see that we are making progress on getting some of these wrapped up, but I just wanted to share the big outstanding items that we're still working on. Obviously landscaping is one that's very visible. The rain every other day is not helping that cause right now, but we've got some big graded areas of dirt ready to be planted, and all of the landscaping right up against the building is in So it's starting to look like a real building, which is awesome. We're also putting in a sidewalk along Slater, and so you can see some work beginning for that as well. Public art is still forthcoming. We are in coordination with the artist right now. The piece is just about done. Production was delayed because of COVID. The big challenge right now is that for a number of states, if you come to Kansas, you have to quarantine for 2 weeks when you return, and these are small shops, and they're not able to sustain that quarantine order, so they're unable to deliver our piece right now. So we're trying to work through options with them about that. Like I mentioned, the indoor pool is still under construction. We're still waiting for all of the furniture to arrive. We had a pretty big group of furniture shipped last week. So hopefully some of these pieces we're waiting on will finally get to us. And then now that we're in the building and we've had a chance to see what it looks like, and with all the art up and kind of the furniture in and the lights on, and we're going through and identifying places that we want to paint additional segments of the wall and add some additional graphics to the wall. And we purposefully left it pretty bare until we got into the space because we knew it would feel different once we were in there and living in it. And so now we're adding some more pops of color and graphics since we can see how everything's working together. So that is all I have for you this evening. I would be happy to answer any questions that you have about the project.
Any questions? Brian?
Yes, how much is left in the construction contingency fund?
Yeah, so McCarthy's contingency fund is depleted. And so the city still is carrying contingency. Right now we have like around $500,000 we're still carrying in our contingency fund. And so it looks like we'll be able to give some of that money back to the city at the end of the day.
Any other questions? Okay, well, very good. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
We're going to move to Community Development, Public Works, and CIP, and we're going to move here next about a CIP update. Jim McDonald, would you please give us a staff update on the side?
Yes, good evening, Mayor and Council. I've got your August CIP update, and I'm going to start with the Maston Street project, which was Maston from Johnson Drive to Shawnee Mission Parkway. That project is substantially complete. We replaced all the substandard curbs, sidewalks, and storm drainage in that area. New asphalt surface has been placed along with the pavement markings. If you haven't driven down there, the right turn lane into the school is completed. The street's looking really well right now. The one thing we have left to do is sod, and we anticipate that's going to be right after September 1st in our fall sod season. The next portion I have is the Johnson Drive Cars project, which is from the BNSF Railroad to the East City limits. Johnson Drive westbound from Antioch to the East City limits. We've finished all the substandard curbs, driveway approaches, sidewalks, ADA ramps. Those have all been replaced. And now they are working on the eastbound portion of Johnson Drive. They started at the East City limits, and they're doing the same thing over there, ADA ramps, curbs, driveway approaches, and they are about to Goodman as of today. Last week, we closed Johnson Drive down at the railroad crossing to allow BNSF to raise the tracks up to grade. They completed that by Wednesday, Thursday, and that allowed our contractor to get in and mill out the surface and lay asphalt up to the new grade of the railroad tracks, creating a smooth surface. We had the striping was completed this morning, and Johnson Drive is now open. There were some signal upgrades and some sidewalks while that area was closed. And so we're still working on fine tuning some of those signals over there. We had little bumps this morning, but we got most of those addressed. We're on schedule for that project, and the completion date for that is October 15th. The next project I have is the 55th Street storm drainage, and that's the bid award that you approved tonight. Once we give Mayor's Specialty Services the notice to proceed, they will add us on their schedule, and then we'll find out what their construction schedule is going to be for that project. We anticipate once they get in, they'll be done within probably 2 weeks. Everything's done underground, so there'll be minimal disruption to that neighborhood. So I'm happy to answer any questions on these projects or any other public works related projects that you have this evening.
Anybody have any questions? Chris Hands.
Yes, there seems to be pent up demand for big item pickup, but it's not on the calendar yet. So do you have a date?
It's the third week of October.
Okay.
I'm looking at my calendar right now. The 19th through the 23rd is a large item pickup.
You're going to make me very popular with a couple of people.
I'm doing my job then.
It will also, there's also an announcement about it in highlights.
Good.
Okay, great.
Yeah. And according to Jenna, it should be on the website as well. So some resources you can there.
Okay.
Any other questions for Public Works Director? Yes.
I have something I have heard from one particular Ward 2 resident who is so excited about the railroad crossing. I suspect many of you know who that might be.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yes.
not me, but it is
No.
me.
Well, I haven't got down there to try it yet. I need to do that. I saw the pictures, that they were impressive, and I'm just glad that we didn't have to beg and threaten the railroad to get in gear, that they came through and got it done when they did, because sometimes you got to put your reservation in 5, 6, 8 years in advance with those folks. So, okay, let's move out of CIP and talk about update on the Merriam Point redevelopment. Chris, get your mic on. There you go.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, wanted to just share an update on what I think is an exciting development that's occurring over in Merriam Point at the Track B site, which is just south of 67th and I-35 in our car dealership, the Merriam Point development down there. If you'll recall, on May 11th, City Council approved an updated redevelopment agreement with both the original developer and then Richard Webb, who is the owner of Infinity and the Track B site. That redevelopment agreement essentially gave Mr. Webb gave him until 12/31 of 21 to bring in a dealership. As you will recall, we have entered an agreement with him to essentially do TIF funding for him to fill that ditch in. So he did a bunch of work over there. He enclosed that creek. And the agreement that we have with him, the redevelopment agreement, essentially reimburses him through TIF, which is how quite a bit of the development down at Merriam Point has occurred. And I think everybody would agree that it's been a very successful development. One of the things that's occurring almost within a week after we approved that extension, an opportunity presented itself to actually perhaps do something different with that site. And so what we'll be bringing forward at the next meeting on the 24th is a termination agreement to that redevelopment agreement. So if you'll recall, and I'll share my screen here in a second, the current RDA, the current redevelopment agreement is that was revised on May 11th. Can everybody see that?
Yeah.
It is that was originally put together in 2017 is for a 45,000 square foot dealership, a single dealership that doesn't occur in Merriam. The city would commit $6 million in TIF, $4 million of which will come from the incremental property tax that would be thrown over the period of the agreement, and then there would be $2 million payable in supplemental TIF, which is essentially unallocated TIF balance that is sitting in the TIF account. Those $2 million would be allocated $1 million upon grand opening. So none of it pays until it's operational. $1 million paid upon grand opening, $1 million paid upon 1 year anniversary. Richard currently has, under the current redevelopment agreement, has until 12/31/21 to open a dealership. The agreement only contemplates a single brand, so just a single dealership, single amount of cars being sold on that site. And the TIF would still run until July of 2023. So that is the current RDA. So that's the RDA that was approved May 11th. We've had some conversations over the course of the last several months about, is there a way that Randy Reed, who is building the dealership next door, can purchase this property and incorporate this into his dealership. We think we found a way forward. It will require, as opposed to updating the redevelopment agreement, it will require a termination agreement, the details of which, and I think this becomes a win-win for all the parties involved. So we would put together a termination agreement that the 4-acre tract B site essentially becomes an outdoor showroom. That's car speak for parking lot right now, but it does have the opportunity for potential future use. Perhaps a dealership on that side would occur, but it definitely will allow Randy, who is one of our existing businesses. He currently operates the Hyundai dealership. He's bringing in the Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram right next door. It does allow us to work with him, which is a council goal. He is currently going to have to shuttle cars from a lot in Lenexa up to his site here. And anybody that knows cars knows that cars sell better when the cars are on the lot. So by him not only having to pay to shuttle those cars to Lenexa, he will sell less, which means we will get less sales tax off of that. So allowing or arranging for Mr. Webb to sell to Mr. Reed, again, supports one of our existing businesses, allows him to expand over. Because we're not getting a dealership, we would cap the TIF at $5 million as opposed to $6 million. So instead of TIF dollars to the amount of $6 million, it would be $5 million, so it'd be $1 million less, and it would be payable upon construction completion, meaning once that's up and operational for Mr. Reed, and he can sell his Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram off of that lot, which we believe will be about 120 days. So by the end of the year, that's when that $5 million would be payable. And more importantly, it terminates the TIF upon payment. So once that $5 million is paid, we would terminate the TIF, with the ultimate goal being that we would take the Merriam Point TIF and the Aristocrat TIF out of TIF, and we would put those back on the property tax rolls. So essentially we would move those from a restricted funding source in TIF and put those back in the general fund. So going from the RDA, we would, instead of a dealership for $6 million that won't come online until perhaps the end of next year, we would be looking at an outdoor showroom for an existing business, the neighboring business, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram, $5 million, which is $1 million less in TIF, and we would be able to terminate the TIF. Again, once that's up and operating and it's selling cars, if it's selling cars by the end of the year, that's a year earlier than it would be for the current RDA. So wanted to just kind of bounce this off to council so it didn't come as a huge shock when we come next week. They are in the process. They are going through their negotiations between Richard Webb and Randy Reed. So the time is somewhat of the essence to get the termination agreement cleaned up so they can clear title. Main reason being that with this redevelopment agreement, it does not allow for clean title. So Richard can't sell, Mr. Webb cannot sell to Mr. Reed with the RDA hanging over the title. So this would clear up the title. It would reimburse Mr. Webb for the millions of dollars he did to turn that ditch into a revenue producing parcel. And we actually get it a lot quicker, perhaps a year earlier than we would otherwise. And instead of just being a single brand being sold on site, we'd have Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, and potentially another dealership somewhere down the road, which is my understanding is more likely than not on that site. But that will not be part of any agreement that we have. I know that's a lot of information. Let's see how I stop that. That's a lot of information, but I just wanted to kind of throw it out there initially so the council knew that it was coming. We will have a full termination agreement in 2 weeks that basically spells all of those out. It will include the existing RDA, the redevelopment agreement that we're living under today. You'll also have the termination agreement, so we can see exactly how we're spelling out this closing down of the RDA and the closing down of that TIF, the process that we're going to follow. And we believe it's a great opportunity to help out help out 2 existing businesses that are in town that are adjacent to that property, get it back on the rolls and get it producing sales tax. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Jason,
I see there's
so
some hands up.
Yeah, this is Jason Silvers. I have 2 quick questions. Really, I just need some clarification because this is also new to me. So if for some reason there's a rush on cars after that dealership opens and they have $5 million worth of TIF taxable sales in 2 years, that means the TIF shuts down in 2 years, or it could go, it's until we hit that $5 million?
No, the way that the termination agreement will be crafted will be once it is open, once the work has been completed to turn it into, to join it with Mr. Reed's existing dealership that he's building, we would certify all the expenses. So by TIF statute, they have to turn in all their receipts. We have to look at all their receipts and certify them. We can't, just because they spent some money towards the improvements, don't necessarily mean they're eligible by statute. We would reimburse up to $5 million. So
Okay.
he may spend $10 million developing the property. We're only going to reimburse up to 5.
Okay.
As opposed to 6. Originally it had been 6, but we were going to get a full dealership on the site at that point in time.
Okay, and that's not tied to sales at all. It's just
That the only thing tied to sales is the sooner that we can get cars on that parcel, the sooner cars can be sold and sales tax be generated on that parcel.
got it. Okay, and then my second question is, you said that after we hit that TIF amount, it'll be shifted to property tax. Can you explain that a little further for me?
Our intention would be that once we have met the agreement, so once we terminate the redevelopment agreement, because all obligations have been fulfilled by all parties, that property is now eligible to be yanked out of the TIF, so that the property taxes that are being generated on that site no longer go into the TIF account, because there's nowhere for them to go, because there's no redevelopment agreement saying they need to go to Joe or John or Sue or whoever, Mr. Webb, Mr. Block, Mr. Christie, whoever, Hendrick. So once that agreement expires, we can pull that TIF we can pull that property out of the TIF and put it just back in regular taxable property. So the property taxes that are paid on those car dealerships, which are considerable sums, now flow like any other commercial business that's not in the TIF. They go, because currently they go into the TIF account, and then they get reallocated by the redevelopment agreement. Once that redevelopment agreement has been fulfilled, we want those property tax dollars to go to buy. We can't currently buy police cars with them. I can't buy police cars. I can't cut grass with them. I can't buy a dump truck with them. I can only spend them within the TIF for certain things. We want that to be unrestricted funding. We want to be able to use that for the general fund. We want to be able to buy pencils and police cars with it, as opposed to just curb and gutter within the TIF or reimbursing developers. So we would yank it out of the TIF.
Okay, I thought you meant it somehow come back on homeowners, so I'm glad to hear that.
Oh no, it would actually, if what it will have the effect of by pulling it out of the TIF, it will actually have the effect of more revenue now being available for somewhere down the road. We can have conversations about what we think the appropriate level of the mill should be. We can have conversations about, as we go down the road, about, do we think we need in 3 or 4 years to not increase the mill, because now we have this infusion of property taxes that currently are not on the rolls.
Thank you for clarifying that.
now, Mr. Pape, do you have a question?
Yeah, Mayor, this is Bob. Yeah, I was just curious as to how much that revenue that's currently being going into the TIF district do we anticipate will now be freed up for the general fund? Do we have, is it 500,000 or do you have a number?
Yeah, it would likely be several hundreds of thousands of dollars, but because again, as I shared with the CAFR sheet earlier, you have 118 mills approximately that flow through all those properties. That 1.5 goes to the state. The school district hits you for 55. The drainage district hits you for 2 or 3. So what that number is, I can't tell you right out. I can't tell you off the top of my head, but it's several hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions?
What I can do is I will try to get an estimate for the next meeting, a ballpark estimate.
One of the things to it that maybe should be underscored is that when you roll that over, not only does it go back into our account, property tax revenue, but it goes to the school districts, because right now they're not receiving any revenue from it either. The county, all the other taxing entities, it goes back into theirs, so they all see a little bit of a windfall from us terminating this TIF a year early.
It'd be several years early, but great point, Mayor. You are absolutely correct.
And we've met, Chris and I met and talked about this. This was a strange process anyway with this ditch thing. And again, we've got a lot now that's going to be worth a lot of money. It was worth nothing before we started. And the development of that, what it costs to develop, that's really where the TIF money is going back, just to pay the guy who owns the property, who had it developed, so that we can make more money on it. And when he sells the property, hopefully he'll make a profit. Who knows if he will or not, but that was surely his intent. But at the time we did this, we didn't realize we were going to get this mega dealership that we got up there being built right now. If you haven't driven by it, I want you to try to imagine what it would be like to have a dealership without that property on the side of it. I mean, because it takes up the whole lot. We are not really necessarily compromising by not having a new dealership on Track B. We've got a dealership that operates 4 different lines of vehicles on that property. So we're very, very fortunate to have Randy Reed and his group there. They are moving their dealership from Metcalf, which has been there for many, many years. It's an established dealership, and we're going to have a much better location, I believe, than 91st and Metcalf for him to do far better than he's been doing there. And we're going to be the ones that benefit as well as him. Mr. Pape?
Yeah, Mayor, I just thought of another question. Has Mr. Reed or Randy Reed indicated what the increased amount of cars he's going to obviously have available to be selling if we okay this agreement next week or in 2 weeks? Does he anticipate like a 10% or 15% increase maybe in sales of vehicles? Has he offered any type of number?
He gave us a range that was north of 20% increase.
20% increase. Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, it's a range. It's a range. Sure. But I mean, I would argue that, I mean, we've all bought cars. I mean, there's nothing more frustrating to go, I like that car, but I wish it had this feature or that feature. And, I mean, I don't think any of us, we don't buy cars enough to actually be professional about it and enjoy the process that much. So them having that inventory on the lot, as opposed to going, well, hey, if you can give me 20 minutes, I'll send one of these guys to my lot in Lenexa to get it and then come back and get it. When it's on the lot, they will turn it. I mean, they are very committed to, if they have it on the site, they're going to move them. So that's, having the cars is going to have a positive effect on the amount of sales, which in turn has a positive effect on the amount of sales tax generated.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I plan to bring that termination agreement forward in 2 weeks. If anybody has any questions about any of that between now and then, or wants to know a little bit more about TIF or redevelopment, please give me a call. I'm happy to explain any of that, so to get us a little well-versed in that, if that helps us. So please reach out if you'd like to.
Very good. Let's get out of that topic and give you the opportunity if there are any staff items this evening.
Sure. Just have 2 that I want to share. The 5701 demo notice to proceed has went out. Denton Excavating has removed the cornerstone. I think I shared that with council. We're going to have an article about that and that process. The mosaic has been, one of the mosaics has been removed, and I think it's at Public Works already. If it has not been, Jim will be moving it soon. They, I believe, have the asbestos removal scheduled. There's a few items still left in the gymnasium for folks to pick up from Purple Wave, but we are in the process of starting to dismantle that building. Then I wanted to give a quick CARES update. So CARES update is the $116 million from the federal government that was transferred into the county's bank account to help fund the county, including local government, through the pandemic. So there was a committee that was put together of several county employees and then 3 city managers from Johnson County to help kind of guide and inform these conversations about information that we could provide from a city standpoint, what are reimbursables that we feel are above and beyond our budget, and how we could best get that money into city hands so we can help our residents and help people recover. So the county's looking at being a little bit more robust with some of that money and extending some services that help residents. We're looking for some reimbursement for some costs that we have. When I say we, I mean cities. And so we've designed really 3 phases for city submittals. The first submittal is going to be hard costs that are above and beyond the budget. So things that we have, all of the PPE. We are having this building disinfected on a regular basis. Those are costs that are above and beyond our budget. You know, the masks, the plexiglass, the things that we have incurred cost for, we are seeking reimbursement, we being city. So that's phase 1. So we are submitting receipts and saying these are costs. Those things go through the county finance department, and they ultimately get approved by the Board of County Commissioners. Olathe submitted their first round on Thursday, I believe it was. It might have been last Friday, and it was approved. So we're kind of using their submittal as a template to see these are the type of things that were clearly approved. We plan to submit in the next 24 hours, ultimately because we being the cities and the county want to get through phase 1, because what phase 2 is going to be is more preventative in nature. So their planning costs, are there additional things that we could do to make us more mobile, things that make us more friendly if we have to do this again next year. So Zoom, getting people iPads, getting improved Wi-Fi pucks, things like that help us be more mobile, where if we get to the point where we can't concentrate people in one particular place. There's a wide variety of things that we plan to request that help us be a more resilient organization if COVID continues. So that's more of a request of things that we collectively as cities would like to buy. And then any money that's left will likely be dedicated to some level of personnel costs. So there were overtime costs. You have to imagine that, when you've got people that are working from home, we've tracked all of our spending since the beginning of March. You've got overtime because people are out quarantining, so that kicks other people into overtime. All of the prep work that fire department, police department, public safety, public works have to do, there's a cost that we have incurred from a personnel standpoint that all the cities are going to be seeking reimbursement for. So as we submit for each phase, we will share with council, this is what we submitted, this is the amount, this is what we're seeking. But we are planning on getting some level of reimbursement for the costs that we've incurred thus far. And plus, if we can get some things approved, that'll make us a more resilient organization. So that I don't have a whole lot of details because we haven't submitted yet and we haven't had any approvals, and only 1 city's went through the approval process. But I wanted to give an update to let everybody know that we're working on that. Meredith is up to her neck in receipts and copies of financial reports, or at least finance reports out of the accounting system. So we are starting to put those things together, and we'll roll that out to council in the hopes that we will get some of these costs reimbursed. That's all I have. I'm happy to answer any questions if anyone has any.
Any questions, Bob?
Yeah, that's Bob. It's good to hear that they got the mosaic down. I was just curious, what did it come down in one piece or is it in multiple pieces?
It's two pallets. One of which I would call your more interesting, valuable stone, and then the other one is all just a bunch of red brick. But you know, we have pictures of it. We have it documented. We know where it all goes, so we will be able to put it all back together.
Thank you.
But yeah, they were unable to get it all down in one. Once it started to come down, it came down. But they didn't damage any of it. They did a good job of keeping it all from banging on the ground.
Okay.
Chris Hands and I are thrilled about that.
Yeah.
Thank you. We've been doing research on quilt blocks.
Yeah. All right. Any other questions or comments? And I presume there is no new business this evening. So
I don't have any, Mayor.
that being the case, I'll entertain a motion and a second for adjournment. Bob Pate,
I'll make a motion that we adjourn, Mayor.
Chris Hands.
I'll second it.
Motion made and second. Madam Clerk.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Everybody have a good
See you
evening.
next time.